everyone. Good morning to all of you. This is Akshay from Majah Corporation. I know that we have attendees joining from multiple locations, and thank you for joining us today. Let's go over a few housekeeping items before we get started. I would like to request you all to mute your audio during the presentation. And if you have any questions, please post your questions in the chat option provided by the WebEx, and we will respond to those questions at the end of the presentation. Your questions will be answered sequentially. If we are unable to get to any of your questions due to time constraints, we will respond to them separately over an email. We will also be recording this session and sharing with all the attendees. For today's webinar, which is on digital receivables, keeping the customer and maximizing cash flow, we have with us Eric Scherzer, who is the head of credit and collections at Restaurant, a Siemens business. Eric has been working in credit and collections, treasury, and finance for more than 20 years, both in financials, functional, as well as managerial roles. Eric has also held several senior positions in companies such as Wells Fargo Financial Leasing, Thermo King, Restaurant, and Siemens. Eric has driven and participated in implementation of multiple ERP systems, such as Oracle and collective systems, such as Majah. Along with Eric, we have Phyllis Saavedra. Phyllis is director of our order-to-cash solutions at Majah, and she is currently serving as a director of order-to-cash solutions at Majah Corporation. She has been working in the field of finance, specifically order-to-cash, for more than 20 years, both as functional as well as consultative roles. Over the years, she has held several management positions in companies such as SanDisk, Novellus, and Saba Software. Additionally, she has extensive experience as a consultant and implementer of software in all areas of order-to-cash lifecycle. Let me now welcome Phyllis to get started with the presentation. Thank you very much. Phyllis, over to you.
Thank you, Akshay, and welcome everyone, and thank you again for joining us today. So as Akshay mentioned, we're going to go through the presentation. We'll have a little chat with Eric and talk about, his experience in accounts receivable and digital implementations along the order-to-cash space. And then if time permits, we are certainly going to open up the chat for questions. And if you don't have time to get your questions answered, we'll have contact information up on the last slide. So with that, before I get started today talking about digital receivables, just let me spend about 1 minute talking about Majah, just so you know who we are. Majah is an end-to-end order-to-cash automation solution. We've been in business a little more than 15 years. Our implementations typically take place for customers that are looking to begin the automation journey that have large amounts of transactions they want to automate. That might be large multinationals, global shared service centers, those that really are looking to take advantage of technology such as automation, analytics, and artificial intelligence. Majah is based in the Silicon Valley in Northern California, and our real goal is to make more efficient and effective all of those order-to-cash, accounts receivable, and credit and collections processes. All right, so let's get started. So digital is pervasive in all areas of our life today. In today's webinar, we're going to talk about how these digital technologies are being deployed, especially in businesses within the order-to-cash roles. So as you can see, FinTech kind of described it very well. In today's consumer atmosphere of Google Wallet, Venmo, and Zelle, people can settle payments and bills quickly and efficiently with the touch of a few buttons. This mindset is now starting to trickle over to the B2B side, and treasury professionals are learning they need to quickly adapt to the trend of going digital. I think that's an important message here today that we're going to talk about, because really we all use digital technologies in our daily lives. But what we haven't done is really adapted this and brought this forth into the business side of our lives. And today we're going to give you some real-life examples, show you places to get started, and really ultimately show you how this is going to affect your experiences with your customers. Just by way of a story, last night I was actually talking to a controller for a very large multinational medical device company. And this controller was just recently came on board, and they were given the task of fixing their accounts receivable. They had really high DSO, really delinquent AR, and the controller was telling me that his approach to this was going to be first operational. He was going to throw a bunch of bodies at it. He was going to have them try and bring in as much cash as he could get. And as he, to quote him, he was going to go after all the low-hanging fruit he could get. And so I asked him, I said, well, what about strategy? What about being a strategic approach in the business? And he said, well, strategy is going to come for later. And so the reason I tell you that story is I think today what we're going to talk about is not just an operational approach, but where operational and strategic approaches kind of meet so that the goal that we all have, which is to grow sales and get repeat customers, really remains and stays the priority. So what are we going to be talking about today? First, we're going to be talking basically about what is digital, the why and the how of digital. You may already know what digital is, but we'll talk a little bit about it and how it really fits into the AR or order to cash space. Then we're going to talk about leveraging what we call the Triple A Trifecta, or automation, analytics, and AI, which we believe to be the most important aspects of digital transformation or even finance transformation. And then we're going to start getting a little bit more specific. We're going to talk about what we're here today, the receivables part of the business, the digital approach to billing, invoicing, collections, and deductions. And then we'll talk about how this all relates to the customer, because ultimately, if we don't make the customers happy, if we're not easy to do business with, we don't keep those customers and we don't build revenue. And then finally, I think we're very lucky to have Eric Scherzer on board with us. Eric and I are going to talk a little bit about his implementation, and he's going to provide some advice for people on the phone for automation and implementations. So with that, why digital and the why and how of digital? Finance departments really, it's important when we think about digital. Everybody says they want finance or digital. They want the tools. Many of you already even have these tools. You may have bought software solutions, or they may be built into some of your ERP systems. But the real question is, are you using them? Are you using them to their biggest benefit? And are you getting the most out of those software tools? So where are we at today? I think it's very important to sort of level set and understand where the world is today. So typically, and this is a typical sort of scenario, employees lose 20 to 40% of their workday manually looking for misplaced paperwork or documents and combing through files, whether they be print or they be digital. It takes approximately 18 minutes for a worker to find any needed document because they don't have them right at their access. Nearly 40% of employee productivity is lost due to unorganized task switching, meaning we go back and forth because we're not being strategic in the work that we're doing. Less than half the companies that have been surveyed have internal processes set up to catch early payment vendor discounts, but even though they've got that, less than 10% capitalize on these discounts. Manual invoicing, data entry, and data management produced error rates between 4 and 10%. You're going to see that, you probably see that in your deductions. You see that in why customers aren't paying. Perhaps invoices don't have the right purchase order number or the right SKU number, things like that. And finally, over 60% of companies will experience an attempted or successful payment fraud scheme. These schemes specifically manipulate manual-based business processes and systems. All of these, when you start thinking about what today's landscape is, will help you to sort of make some decisions on why you see the value in going digital. So what exactly is digital transformation? Digital transformation makes it easy and effective to deliver positive customer experiences. When we work with our customers, we want to make things more easy. It's a combination of both technology, strategy, and visionary leadership. Digital is not just about the actual act of automation, but it's how you deploy it in your business and how you see it as a greater outcome for your customers. Digital allows us to focus operations on the things customers value. Your customers want timely responses. Your customers want easy access. Your customers want to know that their vendors are there for them. All of this is available with digital transformation and digital technologies. Digital transformation allows us to build platforms and partnerships that accelerate your business and help you scale your business. Digital is not necessarily about getting rid of the human workforce. It's more about a hybrid workforce, a workforce that allows us to utilize bots, to utilize AI, utilize automation in conjunction with employees and redirect those employees to more thought-provocative, more risk-associated type roles in the business. It helps us to align technology with our business priorities. And finally, it helps to tie finance, the strategies that finance have, to the outcomes that we desire in our businesses. So where are we headed? Earlier, we talked about the current state of affairs in AR. So where are we going? I always like to say, don't worry about the robots taking your jobs. Worry about being prepared for the future. That's really true. AR functions, live functions are always going to be a part of the business. We just have to learn how they're going to integrate into the world of where we're headed. So where are we going? It's going to be a customer-first digital collections organization. The AR departments are going to have to integrate with all of the areas of the business and integrate not just with the business, but with the technology that we have out there, learn to deploy the talent that we have, and be responsible for the change management and the leadership of the companies. AI is going to be pervasive in the new world. Transactional work is going to go away. The days of mailing invoices, the days of manually applying cash by hand, all of that in the very near future, if it hasn't gone away in your business, it's going to go away, and you need to start looking at adapting to these new technologies. Customers are going to want mobile access. In our business, for example, all our credit applications are online and available for mobile access because people now want to be able to do things off of their mobile phones, off their tablets. And this is not just in your personal life. Think about this in terms of business. People might be out in job sites. People pay in remote areas. Mobile access is going to be a requirement. Additionally, real-time 24/7 access to your vendor. People don't want to wait. I don't want to wait until my cash is posted to get my next order so that I still have room on my credit application. I need an invoice to pay the bill. I might be on vacation and I may have brought my laptop, but I may still be responsible for the AP of a company. So on real time, I want to be able to go in and pull down my vendor's invoice. It's going to be a hyper-connected supply chain. Tools such as ours, tools such as the major ERPs are all going to be interconnected via API. And so it's going to be a one-stop shop for many people out there. So digital is a great concept, but what tools are specifically available to us as order-to-cash leaders and finance decision makers? So at the outset, I talked a little bit about Majah and our sense and the Triple A Trifecta. I think the Triple A Trifecta is a very important concept in digital receivables and necessary in order to keep and make the customers happy. And what is the Triple A Trifecta? Automation, analytics, and artificial intelligence. Automation, the digital and robotic process automation that allows you at any one time to really automate at least 80% of your business. We like to talk about the 80-20 rule. We talk about the fact that 80% of your business should become automated. 20% still will be left to that high risk, high touch, high visibility customers. You know, the whole discussion today is about keeping your customers and keeping them happy. You are always going to have these VIP or high touch customers. That will still require human intervention, but you want to be able to free yourself up, free your teams up by utilizing and deploying automation so that you can focus on those higher risk, higher touch, higher visibility customers. Analytics are another very important part of the digital office. Being able to report on, being able to predict and prescribe what is going on with the business, being able to manage your collections in a strategic way. For example, if you can predict the payment patterns of your customers, why not base your collection strategy on those predictive numbers? Why would you not want a software tool or an ability to predict cash flow into the business? You know, old school ways of looking at a cash forecast, taking a percentage of aging buckets, it's archaic. You want to be able to deploy things like machine learning. Let the machine, you know, let the tool tell you when your customers are going to be paying. It also makes it better when you're working with your customers, right? This way, you're not, quote unquote, bothering the customers that always pay on time. Deploy your resources to those customers that you're predicting are going to pay slowly. Finally, AI. You know, in our world, we deploy a digital assistant. We call our digital assistant 𝗂𝗶𝗴𝗶, but there are many digital assistants out there in your you know, real life or your non-business life. You probably use Siri and Alexa and things like that. Deploy these conversational bots to save time, to interact with your customers. You know, your customers don't always want to talk to a human being. It's oftentimes they just want to get things done, they want to have a conversation, and they want to just be able to pay their bills simply. Without the benefit of automation, firms run the risk of inadvertently excluding data from forecasts or failing to schedule it. And thanks to the rapid developments in artificial intelligence and machine learning, key market players have started to roll out solutions that all but mitigate those risks. I think this is a very important point. And as I said earlier, automation allows us to address our accounts receivable in its entirety. This is that 80-20 rule and the ability to touch 100% of your customers. We want to be able to reach each and every customer each and every day if necessary. We want to be able to provide insights to customers, and we want to be able to not only mitigate risk, but we want to always improve customer satisfaction. So today we're specifically talking about the core functions in the order-to-cash process. So let's look at some of the real-life tangible processes that you guys can automate. So you can see that I've kind of highlighted what we consider the core processes in the order-to-cash life cycle: your receivables, your collections, and your deductions. This area is rife with abilities to digitize and automate. You can start anywhere with electronic invoice presentment. As I mentioned a little while ago, cash flow forecasting, adopting a machine learning type of cash forecasting, utilizing analytics and reporting to monitor KPIs and metrics in the business. You know, it used to be there was a time when AR would report and they would do their monthly close, and it was just about reporting the numbers. But if you think about it, your value in the business really is going to come from providing insights. So utilizing these metrics and analysis of these metrics to drive business decisions, to give your C-suite information about your business, all of that's very important. Utilizing your receivables and the knowledge that you've got from them to help you with customer segmentation. Things like parent-child hierarchies in a business. How are you managing the risk of your customers? If you can't see a customer at the parent level, how do you know that you're managing the entire risk of that customer? By the same token, you may need to manage your customer down at the child level for regional collection strategies and things like that. In terms of collections, this is a really important area when you talk about automation and digitalization of the business. Old school way of looking at your aging as a collector, going A to Z or high dollar to low dollar, it really is an archaic process. What we should be doing in this day and age is providing strategy or strategic-based collections. Collections that parallel what the corporate strategy is, so that you are collecting from those customers or making phone calls or sending letters to those customers that aren't paying, that might typically run slow. Or if you need a proactive strategy, you might also have customers or have a business need to be proactive, sending reminder letters. All of this daily prioritized task lists helps you become more strategic in the business. It also really helps you to get a 360-degree view of your customers. And again, when you think about all of this, and if you recall the title of the webinar, keeping your customers and improving your cash flow. Once you can see the whole customer, once you're more strategic in how you approach them, all of that ultimately adds up to customer satisfaction and certainly helps with revenue growth. Deductions, I always think is one of the most important parts of automation. I think if you're a business that has high DSO or you're a business that has unhappy customers, I think it's really important to understand why your customers are deducting. It's very important to be able to manage those deductions, address them quickly, understand the reasons, and then really operationalize all that information that you get from assessing those deductions and drive change in the business. Again, I can't emphasize it enough. AR has always been this sort of, I'll call it almost the blue-collar accountants of the business. What you have today is the ability to be drivers of the business. You have more information probably about your customers than anyone else within your organization. Why not use that information to help drive what's going on in the business and help make changes to make your company more profitable and more valuable? So in your personal life, how many bills do you guys still pay by mail? How many calls do you have with service providers? What happens at night when you can't sleep and you want to see a billing statement? You guys use digital technologies. So if you're using digital technologies in your personal life, why would your business life be any different? Invoicing is a company's most commonly used process. Although it serves the purpose of getting paid, it also provides a chance to engage your customer and improve their experience. Invoicing is one of the first introductions your customers have to your business. How you bill them, how you pay. After you bring them on board and you go through the credit process, your customer sees you on a daily, weekly, monthly basis by how you invoice. So how easy you make it and how fast you make it and how simple it is to understand gives your customer a true insight into your business. So again, let's remember that this webinar is about keeping the customer and maximizing cash flow. How your customer feels about the interactions, just like I said about invoicing, will greatly affect whether or not they're happy. So if you look at this IDC survey and you see, items 1 and 2, digital success equates to customer satisfaction. Whoops, sorry about that. Equates to customer satisfaction and improving efficiency. We talk about really in the digital world, improving efficiency through automation. Very important points to remember. So what will you get when you look at automating the various core order-to-cash processes? First, in terms of your accounts receivable, you're going to improve your access to your AR data and the documents that you use and that your customers use. You're going to touch 100% of your customer base in any one period. I'm going to bet many of you don't get halfway through your aging in one period now. You're going to have the ability to consolidate your reporting. Global reporting is very important from a risk perspective. Many of our customers want to be approached only once. They don't want to, I've got Coca-Cola in China as a customer, and I've got Coca-Cola in North America as a customer. They don't want 2 collection calls. Coca-Cola may be paying out of a centralized location. You want to be able to, in an automated fashion, be able to assess and analyze your portfolio. You want to assess for risk and for efficiency. You want to be able to present your invoices. You want to be able to present your customers' documentation. So the ability to send letters and statements in an automated fashion, especially to those customers that are paying all the time. You want the ability to see your agings. You want the ability to link your customers, and you want easy access to all of this accounts receivable data for both you and your customers. In terms of the collection process, smart automation or digitalization is going to help you automate your daily tasks. Again, strategic collections for your collectors, following up on broken promises to pay in an automated fashion, being proactive at quarter end, knowing which high dollar customers are due 10 days before quarter end and communicating with them, managing your business by segment. China might be a higher risk area than Japan. Develop a different strategy for the region. Having access to notes and all of your customer information in one place. Automate the low-touch collections. Reallocate staff to your higher risk, higher value, higher visibility type customers. I talked a little bit about the dispute process earlier. I think, as I said, dispute process for me is one of the biggest and most valuable areas when you talk about automating the business. It really helps provide operational insight. Utilize reason codes. Adopt workflows. Quickly, easily, and strategically issue credit memos or get back to your customer that a deduction is really, they need to pay on it. The sooner you do that, the more rapidly you will improve your cash flow. If you recall at the outset of the discussion, I was telling you a story about the controller from the medical device company I talked to last night. And what I didn't share with you was sort of my outcome of the discussion and what my recommendation to him was. Deductions is where I believe the strategic and the operational meet. If you are a company that has high DSO, if you're a company that needs more cash flow, if you have unhappy customers and low customer satisfaction scores, this is where you're going to be able to look at, assess your business processes, and really utilize this information to be strategic and make the business changes. This is that exact point where strategic and operational meet within the business. finally, self-service. I talked about this earlier. Your customers want access. So when you start talking about automation and the kind of things you want, consider things like a portal where your customer can access invoices, making payments online. How many of us make our payments online, whether we pay our phone company or we even make donations online these days? Your customers want to do the same. Business and personal life have really come to meet here. You want a system that is self-service. You want a self-service system that not only is customer-facing, but we talk about things like using bots or RPA to be able to get information for you. So look at systems that allow you to deploy these bots to actually take care of the daily tasks. And all of this will help improve collections efficiency and certainly improve customer satisfaction. The digital workplace should not be seen simply as less people. I talk about this all the time. It should be viewed as a business transformation shift. The benefits that we're going to get are extremely tangible. Number one, for those of you, if you're like me, I'm an environmentalist. I want to reduce waste. Digital, by way of definition, is paperless. Paper is archaic, it gets lost, it kills trees, it's hard to track. Digital allows us to really reduce waste. Digital allows us to prioritize people. We can go from being we can go from being transactional type workers to analysts, really providing value in the business. It saves us money. It allows us to scale the business. Hopefully, whether your business is growing organically, you're increasing your sales, maybe you don't have the ability to add headcount. Automation greatly helps with that. You're growing inorganically. You're a company that grows by merger and acquisition. You can save money by taking the time perhaps to bring this new venture that you've brought on board. You might not want to bring them onto your very large ERP system. It might be costly. Why not use a consolidation tool that allows you to do that? You might not be able to add headcount. You might bring a new acquisition into the fold and all the people are gone. How are you going to see all that AR without adding headcount? All of these things are a benefit when you have a digital workforce. And not only, and probably most importantly, I should say, it prepares us for the future. If you are not a business that is going digital, you'll probably start seeing customers walking away because this is what customers are expecting from us in the future. I've probably said this about 100 times now, and you guys are probably tired of hearing this, but keeping the customer is what we really want. That's the benefit that we all want, and that's the benefit from a digital receivables. My hope is that today, if you walk away with just one idea, that idea is how that you will personally be able to get started on your digital journey. So the digital AR process and the customer, how is this experience going to change? And how is this experience changing? First off, the advent of the cloud has changed how we do business with our customers. It makes everything more accessible. It makes things less costly. Again, it's pervasive throughout the world. I mentioned earlier that billing and invoice is often the first opportunity to show your customers how you do business. Think about how your invoice presentment is affecting your customers. It's not just now the way that you just get them to pay, it's how you're doing business with them. Collecting money and recognizing discrepancies timely and with minimal risk. This process itself is probably the biggest one, of course, that's going to drive cash flow. It's not just about dialing for dollars, making as many calls as you can make, but understanding the short pays, doing so timely, making the best use of your collectors' times. Things like that are very important. There's now a need to monitor and respond to all customers, not just the loudest customer, not just the biggest customer, but all customers. Any of you that might be based in the United States have probably dealt with the problem of unclaimed property. Unclaimed property often arrives because we have credits or unresolved payments that sit on our accounts receivable. Oftentimes, and I can tell you from my experience as a practitioner, my unclaimed property grew when I didn't have time to follow up with my customers. So there are other things, there are ancillary parts of the business that can be affected if we don't follow up and monitor our customers quickly and timely. Finally, making it easy for customers to do business with us is the most important thing. We want to be able to build repeat business, and we need to be able to protect our revenue. A sale is not a sale, in my opinion, until we've collected the money. And so we need to make sure that the invoices that go out and the deductions and discrepancies that happen get resolved as quickly as possible, and that cash comes in as quickly and timely as it can possibly be. Important to make it a customer-first organization. So if you are still stuck in the dark ages, it's very risky. You're risking future business with your customers. If you have not already considered adopting some of these automation technologies, you should seriously look at your business and think about it. Our customers are having changing expectations. They want visibility as a customer. We need visibility into our customers, and they need visibility into what they're spending their money on, what their issues are. It's a 360-degree view, not just for your business, but just for your customers. We need to be able to spend time, on things that help to maintain customer relationships. If you're spending time on busy work, you're not spending time on maintaining those customer relationships. Very important to provide data and partner with your customers so that we, again, businesses can become much more profitable. As the saying goes, if you're easier to work with, you've got the competitive edge. So the key thing I hope you're going to take away from today is that there are digital technologies available that will help to better serve your needs and the needs of your business and better serve the needs of the changing customer population. People aren't going away. We're simply changing our roles in the business, and from my perspective, this is a good thing. Digital technology is drastically altering the balance of power between customers and companies. While customers gain the power of information and choice, digital technology dramatically improves the economics of the business. These economics are the primary drivers of digital transformation for many businesses. I think Forrester said it extremely well. So as promised, I will stop talking, and we have the pleasure of having one of Majah's long-term customers join us for a chat about his experiences. Eric and I spoke the other day, and he shared with me that his company has gone through many iterations over the years, but throughout all of these iterations, Eric and 𝘓𝗪and have chosen to stick with the Majah AR automation solution. And so I'd like Eric to maybe introduce himself, and he's going to talk a little bit about his experience with his implementation with automation, and then we're going to, just have a little bit of a chat about the things that he's done. So with that, Eric, I'm going to turn it over to you for a few minutes.
Hi, Phyllis. Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Scherzer. I guess my title now is Head of Credit and Collections for 𝘓𝗪and, a Siemens business. Our business was purchased by Siemens about 5 years ago, and it's kind of created a situation where my titles and responsibilities have evolved a little bit. But as Phyllis said, through it all, we've used the Majah product, and quite successfully, I like to think anyway. When I joined 𝘓𝗪and, a long, long time ago, 2004, I think it was. Dresser Rand was, like Phyllis said, in the dark ages. Our collections, our AR was managed off of, you remember, the lined computer paper and Excel spreadsheets. I had come from a background where I'd worked for a long time ago, Sears Credit, and for various departments or various businesses within Wells Fargo. And I had seen how those industries had really automated their credit collection processes. And I didn't understand why a manufacturing company like Dresser Rand wouldn't want to have that ability as well. So I started agitating right away for a collection system. And we were able to negotiate and talk to several different providers. I mean, everybody knows Get Paid, and obviously we talked with them as well. But we settled on Majah. And it's been for us a great choice. We basically needed, at the time when I joined Dresser Rand was owned by Ingersoll Rand. Ingersoll Rand wanted to spin Dresser Rand off onto its own independent entity. We were purchased by a private equity fund. They wanted to spin us off through an IPO, and they basically looked at our books and they said, hey, you know what? We have about $75 to $100 million that we need to get in the door here. So what do we need to do that? And we settled on having a collection system in order to help us do that. We implemented Majah, and within about a year, we had reduced our DSO from, I think it was 75 days to 40 to 43 days. And, you know, as we've continued to use it, we've gone up and down a little bit in terms of our DSO. But anytime things have changed for us, we've always been able to go back in and make adjustments to how we were doing things because we were automated. And we could drive to the results that management decided we wanted to drive to, whether it be cash flow, whether it be to, hey, you know what, we're not so worried about that. Let's clean up tax problems. Let's clean up retention issues. Let's clean up whatever it was. Because we had the information we needed in our collection system, we were able to focus on those areas of concern and drive results as necessary. That's pretty much my implementation story, Phyllis.
So Eric, you and I were talking the other day, and one of the things that you said that I thought was extremely interesting was that you found yourself over the years using Majah in ways you had not anticipated, that you got some ancillary benefits and you made some, I think we'll call it some configuration changes and things like that. Could you share with us a little bit about the ways that you were using Majah that were not necessarily anticipated and maybe some of the benefits that you've gotten out of it?
Yeah, sure. We implemented Majah with the intention of routing our disputes to, the various salespeople throughout the organization. And, there were some successes and some failures in trying to do that. You have departments within the business that embrace the new technologies and departments that say, no, you know what, we're not going to do it. So where it worked, we aggressively used it. But we learned that you can create pathways of communication if you have a good system. So, for example, for us, what we started using the dispute management workflow for was to, one, apply payments. It allowed our collectors to route short payments, unapplied payments, offsets very easily to our cash application department. And so we set up workflows that, we weren't expecting to do it this way, but we set things up through the dispute management system to flow that way. We were just able to find things that worked having a system that we never would have been able to anticipate if we didn't have a system. So it was a very nice feature of the system.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. So you mentioned when you had first joined the company, DSO I think was somewhere north of 70 days or so, and you were able to bring it down. And you've had a little bit of ups and downs. Did you see improvements in other metrics? Did you see things like aging bucket improvement, ability to follow up with customers? I'm not sure if you guys do customer satisfaction type surveys. Did you see improvement in other metrics within the business?
Yeah, absolutely. When we installed 𝗪𝘁𝗄, one of our biggest problems was we have a customer base that buys parts from us. And parts can cost anywhere from $1,000 to $25,000 for us. So obviously, necessarily, when you're working things manually, the collectors worked on the large dollar invoices very, very well, and they let the small dollar invoices slide. So when we installed 𝗪𝘁𝗄, we noticed that we had literally 2,000 old parts invoices that really didn't have a good explanation for why they were sitting out there on an unpaid status. We were able to utilize the 𝗪𝘁𝗄 system basically to make sure that didn't happen anymore. The customers, the collectors were able to say, hey, look, we're not paying this because of a pricing dispute. Well, it might get to be 90, 120 days old, but we still knew what the problem was because we had taken a note. The collector had said, hey, this was the problem. And so then when it push came to shove, when it was time to engage that controller and that manager of that person that had the pricing dispute, we're able to say, look, we've been informing you guys of this for a long time. You need to go settle this pricing dispute with the customer. Having that information at our fingertips was crucial, and it was something that was completely missing when we were manual. Our collectors were good, and they probably had a sticky note somewhere or an email somewhere that explained it, but accounts change, people leave, and that information gets lost. And that's how the problem built up for us over time. Having a collection system, it allows you to go back in time, say, hey, yep, this was the original problem. We were working with this individual at your company, and now we want to sort this out. And it just gives you a lot of leverage.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. I think everyone's going to find that extremely helpful. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So the original implementation, Dresser-Rand, and of course Siemens itself, is a global business, right? And originally yours was a global implementation. How do you think an automation tool such as ours helps you in a global workplace? I think many of the people on the phone work for large multinationals, global companies, and they're trying to see the benefits either of having a shared service center or being able just to have the access in a global environment.
As you implement a collection system globally, it allows you to draw in information that was, I think mostly from a time perspective, not available to you previously. When we would initially, and I'm speaking when we were Dresser-Rand. When we were Dresser-Rand, we were a $3 billion business, which was pretty big, but it's not like a $100 billion business that Siemens is. But we had businesses in France, we had businesses in Malaysia, in Saudi Arabia, in Abu Dhabi, in Spain, and when their receivable portfolio would start to look a little stretched, we would say, what's the problem? And we would get vague answers that, hey, this is the problem. When you put a global collection system out there and you are disciplined about the use of it and you have the collectors that are at that location entering notes, it opens up the ability to see what is going on with those receivables everywhere, specifically on small dollar amounts, on big dollar amounts, depending on obviously the buy-in that you get from those locations. Because now you just have the ability to pull up the invoice and see what the note says. That's a tremendous positive, a tremendous tool. you no longer get the, oh yeah, that's just a retention by the customer. It's like, no, that customer is upset because the, in our case, a turbine or a compressor was painted the wrong color or painted with the wrong paint. It wasn't salt water resistant. And so, our technical people were getting information that sometimes they weren't getting until somebody had gone and visited and had the customer explain. Just the information that starts flowing in because you have a system out there that people are using and putting their comments in and sharing information, it's pretty powerful.
Excellent. Thank you. That's extremely helpful. So you've been doing this a while. I spent about 40 minutes or so talking to everyone about digital technologies. What I see and what we as a company see are the benefits. You've shared a lot of the benefits that you've actually gained from a tool. So I'm sure there are people sitting here going, well, okay, I'd like to do this. So what advice do you have for the people that are attending the webinar on beginning an automation journey or looking for a digital solution? What would you say are the important things to look for, and how should they get started? And maybe talk a little bit about some of the things, if you had hurdles to overcome in your organization. Sometimes it's getting buy-in on cost from your CFO or your controller. Sometimes it's getting IT. So did you face any of those? And certainly any advice you can share, I'm sure, would be very, very helpful.
Wow, that's a hugely broad question, Phyllis. My advice first thing would be get a system, any system. When I was starting my management career, I was with Wells Fargo, but then I went over to Thermo King, and Thermo King was a different business that dealt with a dealer network. So there was, a small number of very large customers. So we had a system, a collection system there that was homegrown, where we could just put notes based on our system. It wasn't based on the invoice, based on the customer, not on the invoice. And that worked really well for us. And it was something that, we worked together to build, and it was great, and it helped us immensely. So, that was the first time I implemented my own system when I came to Dresser-Rand, and I said, hey, we just don't have very good information. And I went to the president and the CFO, and I made my first pitch to them, and I was shocked that they said no, but I think that the first time I approached them, they said no, and it was because they want to make sure that you're committed, that this is something that you have to have, and you're going to keep on asking for this system because it's really, really important, and they want to know how committed you are to making the system work. And so the second time we came and said, no, we really have to have this. I went with the treasurer, and the treasurer, he agreed with the pitch that I was making. And at that point, the president and CFO bought in and said, okay, we'll do it. Let's get this done. Now they actually start to expect results from you, but when you start producing results, they're very open to the idea of making changes, of buying more licenses and expanding the system out around the world because, hey, it worked really well for us here with our dealer branch in the United States. So now let's see what's going on in the engine business in Spain, and let's go see what's going on in the parts business that's coming out of Dubai. And then they're coming to you for questions on, hey, what's going on? And you're giving them answers. You're giving them, the range of disputes that are being entered in the system. You actually, and when you start working in really large organizations, you have the names at your fingertips now of the people that are responsible for fixing problems. And so I find a lot of times people walk down the hall and say, hey, who's the guy that can fix this problem in Malaysia? And because I have his name in the escalation process, I can say, well, let's try this guy. Just the information that you start to gather, and really data information is what makes your process valuable. You know why, you know how much is owed to you, you know why it's past due, you know who's working on it, and if you're using the system right, you know when it's likely to get worked out, and you set a reasonable follow-up for yourself to say, hey, you said this was going to get worked out at the end of August. It's the end of August. Now I'm calling to ask what happened. These are really important tasks. Any manager wants to be able to do this. You can set, I mean, you want to be able to set thresholds. You don't want to be following up on a $5,000 invoice, but if it's $1 million, you probably better make sure you're following up on it. Man, I think I just made a dent in the question. Is there some other things you think I should cover with that, Phyllis?
No, I think that's great. I think at this point, I think you've given a lot of really great information. I think if anybody wants to get a hold of Eric, they can certainly get a hold of him through me if you have more questions. Right now, as we approach the top of the hour, I thought I would open it up. If you have any specific questions for Eric or myself, if you would use your chat button. It looks like a little blue bubble at the bottom of your WebEx screen. You can send it through, and we'll be happy to spend the next few minutes answering any questions. So I have one question here. I've gotten a question already. So is accounts receivable the right place in the order to cash cycle to start? What about credit? I guess I can take this one. Where you start an automation project or where you start your digital journey really depends on what your problem statement is for your company. Today we talked about AR, and I think those are really the core functions, and they drive a lot of cash flow. And if you're a highly transactional company, it's a great place to start, especially if your DSO numbers aren't what you want them to be, if your past due metrics are higher than they should be. But if you're a company, you know, I worked for a company where I was hired because they had a $28 million bad debt in Taiwan. Credit was probably the most important thing that we needed to deal with at that time. The assignment of credit, the process of credit, and the risk assessment of customers. And so that was my first task as I came in as a senior leader into the business. So really, I'm not going to say one is more important than the other. All of them are very important. Some of our customers, for example, choose to eat the whole elephant. They'll deploy or implement credit, the core modules, and cash application, and they'll want to automate everything at once. Others don't have quite the same appetite, and they want to look at these things and do so in a more strategic way. Very important before you begin any of these digital transformation projects is know what your problem statement is. Is it taking me too long to apply cash? Is my DSO too high? Am I having an excessive amount of bad debt write-offs? What is that problem statement? What are you trying to fix? And then start the journey. Next, I have one more question that's come through. Somebody's asking what the average time of an implementation is. Oh, that's always a tough question. I always get this question. You know, a simple implementation of a tool like ours can be anywhere from around, 10 to 12 weeks. But we've done large global projects with 127 ERPs and multiple languages and lots of different banks that are a year in the making. So it really depends. Everything is really has to kind of be assessed on a project by project basis. So that looks like all the questions that I have for right now. We have approached the top of the hour. If you have any further questions or want to get a hold of me, my contact information will be left across the screen for a little while. I very much would like to thank Eric for joining us today. I think the information you gave us was extremely useful, and I know everyone was very excited to hear from you. So thank you again, and please look for emails on the third part of our webinar series, which will be on cash application and cash forecasting. And while I don't remember the date, it should be about a month from now, and we will be sending out emails. And as Akshay said at the outset as well, we will send everybody a recording of this webinar should they want it for future. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Phyllis.